UFC 310. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown. I'm looking forward to talking about each of the matchups on this card. So make sure you guys smash the likes. If you're new, subscribe, turn the post notifications on. Make sure you share the video too. And also note, I'll be live for the entire UFC 310 fight card Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Don't miss the fight companion. Happy to have the UFC back. And let's get into the first fight of the night. We got Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Łukasz Brzeski. I'm going with Kennedy Nzechukwu. Łukasz Brzeski, he's essentially a can. He's got a little bit of boxing in his game. And I guess for a heavyweight, he's not, one of the slowest guys. He does kind of lack power and a chin a little bit and gets a bit sloppy. And Nzechukwu coming up in weight. He was formerly a light heavyweight. I actually think it's a good move for him. He's 6'5". He showed good speed against Chris Barnett last fight, but Barnett was about a foot shorter than him. That was just a little bit over a month ago. Got a first round stoppage there. I think Nzechukwu can strike well from range. I feel like he's got potentially enough power to put Brzeski away, because we've seen Brzeski lose by knockout to Waldo Acosta-Cortez, who's got a little bit of pop, but I wouldn't call him like a knockout artist. And then he also got a knockout loss to Mick Parkin, who was like the king of winning decisions. I think Nzechukwu is live to knock him out as more of like a maybe, though. I'm not saying it's an absolute KO or bust type thing. As Nzechukwu in the past has won by submission, he's won by decision. I just think he's better everywhere. He's a more talented fighter than Łukasz Brzeski. The worry with Nzechukwu, and I think it's kind of like the obvious one, if you've seen him fight, you've seen him knocked out. His chin is suspect. That is the biggest concern with Nzechukwu. Like, the skill set is not bad. He's actually on the faster side for sure at heavyweight now. But even at light heavyweight, I don't think he was awful on the feet. He was kind of quick. He's got some decent wins. He beat guys like Ion Cutelaba. It's just when you find that chin of his, sometimes he completely crumbles. But I think Brzeski's pretty bad. And I think Nzechukwu should probably TKO him. Say TKO or decision. I'm going to say Kennedy Nzechukwu, more talented guy. Moving up to heavyweight should be a good thing. These heavyweights are slower. I think it works to Nzechukwu's advantage. I think obvious speed advantage with a bit of knockout power. He can find some openings against Łukasz Brzeski. Come on, man. Even Brzeski's lone UFC win, I didn't really feel like he beat Walter Walker. I thought that fight could have went either way. But Walter Walker, shit can, right? Pure grappler. So regardless of that, is what it is. Minus 600 for Nzechukwu. I don't think Nzechukwu should be a minus 600 favorite against essentially anyone. But we've seen two back-to-back fights now for him where he's a massive favorite. Brzeski at plus 425. All you can say for Brzeski is, yeah, he, I guess, has a puncher's chance. I mean, anybody would. Over 1.5 at minus 150. I lean towards this fight going over, but it's risky because I think Brzeski, I don't want to say he finds ways out, but he definitely doesn't take a great shot. And if he's getting hit with big ones, I think he'll turtle up. And I think Nzechukwu has enough power to make him very uncomfortable, to make him turtle up, and probably TKO him. It's Kennedy Nzechukwu to get the win. I think moving up to heavyweight, best decision of his career. He was actually supposed to fight like Rogerio de Lima in his heavyweight debut. My God. It has worked out very well, where now he's fighting Chris Barnett last time, and then one of the worst heavyweights on the roster in Łukasz Brzeski here. Good start for Nzechukwu to build some confidence at heavyweight before throwing him out to the damn savages. So I think it worked out better. Nzechukwu, TKO. Let's keep running up as I pop out the Zin. Next fight on the card, we got Clay Guida, Chase Hooper. Old man Clay Guida is still doing his thing, but no way in hell can you pick him against Chase Hooper. These two actually did a grappling match a couple years ago. Chase Hooper got him with a calf slicer. It was like a really weird, it's a weird submission, but it was pretty cool that Chase Hooper pulled off a sub, because Guida, he's hard to put away even in those grappling matches, but Chase Hooper's jiu-jitsu is pretty high level. He's a talented guy. I think that he's come along pretty well over the past 3-4 years. I mean, if you dig back to, I guess, 2 years ago now, I said 3-4, really I should say 2-3. He got knocked out bad with Steve Garcia, but like this has aged really well because Steve Garcia is a legit monster at 145, and he's rallied off 3 straight wins. Nick Fiore, who's a can, Jordan Levitt, who's mid, but beating Slava Claus and dropping him, I think that's impressive. Clay Guida on the other side, 42, about to be 43. I mean, the dude is literally a day away from his birthday come fight night. I just think he's in for hell with Chase Hooper. I feel like Hooper, he's going to be a bit too long. Even in the striking, I think Guida has a hard time getting to Chase. And let's be fair, Chase Hooper's boxing has gotten light years better than his early UFC fights. On the ground, we know he's dominant. He's always had very good jiu-jitsu. He's always been good from top position. He's always had a bit of ground and pound, and obviously the submission skills are known to be there. He's got nasty BJJ. He's only 25, so he still has a ton of upside. And when you really look at Chase Hooper's record, 14-3-1, aside from his unassuming appearance, Chase Hooper's pretty legit as a prospect. And I think a 42-year-old Clay Guida, savage for still throwing down, I don't think he's going to have what it takes to beat Chase Hooper. He lost him by submission and grappling. I think he probably loses to him by sub in the fight. Silva last time got Clay, but the thing is, Silva doesn't pose that same type of submission threat or grappling dominance effect as Hooper. Might punch harder, but besides that, no. Rafa Garcia was able to touch him up, and, you know, Rafa Garcia is decent with his hands. He's got some wrestling. That makes sense. And then a win by split decision over Scott Holtzman, who's retired. Claudio Puelles subbed him. Then a win by submission 3 years ago against Leonardo Santos, who was good at one point. That's crazy. I think sub. I think that Claudio Puelles did it. I think Hooper can do it. And honestly, I feel like Chase Hooper is going to have better potential than Claudio Puelles. So I'm going to say Chase Hooper by submission makes a ton of sense to me. I'm seeing a high probability of him getting on top in this fight, or even if he doesn't end up getting on top, locking up a neck. I think Chase Hooper is going to make Clay Guida tap. Way better at jiu-jitsu, even though Clay Guida is a good wrestler. He doesn't have the same knowledge on the ground. And honestly, with a length advantage, 4 inches in the reach, but look at that. What is it? 5 inches in the height department? 6 inches in height? Yeah, it's 6 inches in height. That's a big factor. And I think the length of the legs play on the ground is a factor too. And you can kind of get a preview of how these two look on the floor with grappling, but adding in MMA, I think it's better for Hooper. So Hooper by submission, he taps out the nearly 43-year-old Clay Guida, and he's a minus 1,000 favorite. Wow. Talk about valuable lines here. Go fucking run out and bet it now. My God. That's crazy. Guida plus 700, but nah, it makes sense. Clay Guida doesn't have much power, right? If you had like a heavy-handed boxer who was a little sus on the ground, but maybe he'd have a shot at 42, Guida, he's good at embracing the grind and scrapping for 3 hard rounds, but dealing with a guy way younger, I just don't see it going well. Over 1.5, minus 145. We got a lot of these over 1.5s. I don't love the over 1.5. I think Hooper could lock up a submission earlier. I'm saying Chase Hooper submits Clay Guida. Could end up going distance, though. If Guida's resilient on the ground, normally hard to put away. The over 1.5 is live. We can see Chase Hooper get the back, control, win rounds, wins, a significant amount of the exchanges and grappling, garner up control time, throw a bit of ground and pound, and Chase Hooper could be on his way to a 30-27. Either way, Hooper to win, high confidence. Yes, it's minus 1,000. Yeah, he's a big favorite, damn. But he's going to win the fight, so odds are what they are. It's about who wins. Next one, we got Michael Chiesa versus Max Griffin. I'm going to pick Michael Chiesa. I think Michael Chiesa, odds-wise, is being a bit overlooked. It's not like Max Griffin has looked exceptional time and time again. I mean, last time, beats Jeremiah Wells in a close split decision. I know Wells is a big powerhouse and stuff like that, but I think he's overrated. I mean, Matt Semmelsberger was dropping him left and right, and look at Semmelsberger's UFC career now. And then Michael Chiesa on the other side, he's a crafty grappler. His striking is scarecrow-like. The dude is stiff. Like, nobody's sitting here and telling you Michael Chiesa has high-level boxing. But Max Griffin, though he's a decent kickboxer, I don't think he has crazy one-punch power. And I think Chiesa is going to get to Max Griffin's body and tie up with him. I feel like he's going to have him backed up against the cage. I think he'll probably get him to the ground. If Chiesa's still got some fight left in him, and at 37, I'll say that he does, I really think he's got a clear-cut grappling edge over Max Griffin. I mean, fight before that, Griffin lost a decision to Michael Morales. Fight before that, he wins a split against Tim Means, and then Neil Magny split. Like, he's going out there and he's performing, and he's relatively competitive in fights, against decent guys. The thing with Michael Chiesa is when you dig into his losses, like, all right, Holland did lock up a sub, but it's Kevin Holland. He's got exceptionally long arms, and, it's not like Chiesa's normally used to fighting guys bigger than him. Sean Brady bodies him for a decision, and Luque subs him up. And then you got the Neil Magny dominance, and you got the Tony Ferguson destruction. I think Michael Chiesa's grappling is better than Max Griffin's. If they're in a pure kickboxing fight, Max Griffin wins. Max Griffin, I'd say relatively solid with takedown defense, but Chiesa good at tying up, working against the cage, wearing on opponents, finding trips and takedowns against the cage, I think is kind of a key to victory for Michael Chiesa. The odds of him just blast double legging Max Griffin from the center of the octagon while mixing in strikes, I don't think there's an exceptional chance. But what I think Chiesa can do is he can force Max Griffin backwards, make him uncomfortable, put him in the clinch, wear on him a bit, make it a boring fight and frustrate Max Griffin, so mistakes will start happening. And I think more takedown opportunities then open up for Michael Chiesa, and Chiesa can win with grappling. So I'm going to pick Michael Chiesa. I think he can pull through on a decision. I would say, like, you know, he's 37, but Griffin's 39. His striking is shit, but Max Griffin's not a one-punch KO artist. And interestingly, Griffin's the favorite right now, minus 140. He was, flip-flopping odds. I mean, you look earlier, he was even a close money. I mean, he was minus 135. It's been close, man. I kind of feel surprised seeing Max Griffin as a favorite here. I don't know why. Before doing the study and finding out what the odds were, I just assumed that Chiesa was like a minus 150 favorite. But no, Chiesa's actually the dog here. Plus 120 for Chiesa. With the clear-cut grappling edge, it's a factor, man. I think that he could end up coming through, and I guess I'm not ready to overlook Michael Chiesa against a 50-50 guy like Max Griffin, who a lot of the times is trading wins and losses. It's minus 185 for over 2.5. You can see Chiesa embracing the grind and winning a decision. There's a chance that he could lock up a sub, though. It's like he looked really good against Tony Ferguson, but let's be honest, Tony Ferguson is a corpse. And Max Griffin is way better at striking than Tony Ferguson. And I think he has, at this point, way better defensive abilities. Like, bro, say what you want about T-Ferg, 8 losses in a row. I'll say this. Look at his back, bro. You know he doesn't even train properly. The dude looks like a grandfather in there. So, yes, Chiesa running him over on paper. It's cool. Oh, you beat T-Ferg. But in reality, he fought an absolute can in the UFC welterweight division. But I think Chiesa can get a hard-fought win here against Max Griffin. I don't know. It's just what I'm kind of seeing. The Jeremiah Wells fight, he did well, but I think Chiesa's a better wrestler than that. And then Michael Morales got a decision against him, but it's not like he makes it easy, and Morales is a good talent. I think Chiesa with wrestling can pull through. I'm going to go Chiesa by a decision, but it wouldn't be crazy if he locked up a sub against Max Griffin either. Chiesa's like deceptively strong, and I think people forget how good his grappling can be when he's on point. So I'm going to go with Michael Chiesa as a dog. I think he's being overlooked a little bit. Next fight on the card, we have Cody Durden versus Joshua Van. I'm going to go with Joshua Van over Cody Durden. I wanted to try and pick Cody Durden here, but what I see when I watch Durden's fights is a bit of over willingness to brawl, which I think favors Joshua Van, especially come round 2 and round 3. Durden being a bit susceptible to hooks by overthrowing punches of his own is a factor against somebody as slick as Joshua Van. Van having relatively solid wrestling defensive capabilities is another factor. And if they're mixing it up on the striking, Durden mixing in takedowns, I don't think it's high likelihood that he's going to drag Van down and dominate. I think Joshua Van's got pretty good hips. I think he's faster than Cody Durden. I think his boxing is cleaner. Durden is an absolute gamer. He can crack for sure, but he also takes a lot of damage. I know Van got knocked out against Charles Johnson, but let's be fair. Charles Johnson is absolutely on fire right now. Joshua Van last fight looked great against Edgar Chairez, and you say, oh, but Chairez is mid. The way he beat him up was impressive. Ripping him to the body with big shots. Ripping him to the head with big shots. I don't think Edgar Chairez is the level of Cody Durden. But what I think Edgar Chairez has that's better than Cody Durden's is durability. We've seen Durden put away before. Durden got put away 2 fights ago by Bruno Silva in a fight that he was winning, and I don't think Bruno Silva is as mobile, nor powerful, nor slick on the feet as Joshua Van. And on top of that, Cody Durden last time was busted up a little bit in a brawl with Matt Schnell. Now, I understand he took that fight on very short notice, but just made it an absolute brawl. It was a good back-and-forth fight. I think Cody Durden is a skilled guy and definitely a fun guy to watch at 125, but I feel as though Joshua Van has that legit top caliber potential. I've said it since the early UFC fights for him. I think that he's a future top 10 guy. I see him as a contender to watch. Yes, he had a hiccup with Charles Johnson knocking him out, but Charles Johnson's very good. stylistically, Charles Johnson is a tricky matchup for Van with his length. In this fight here, a slight length edge for Durden, but his style is not so much using the length. Sometimes he'll be looking to wrestle. I think he might be successful early, backing Van up, hitting him with some decent shots and winning the first round. But Joshua Van historically is a very slow starter. Joshua Van doesn't really fare well in the first round. It's just not his style. He's not a guy that rushes anything. He takes a lot of time. When he starts picking his shots well, when he starts letting his hands go, I should say, I think that's when success starts to come for him. Mixing in punches to the body is going to be a big factor, and I see him knocking Cody Durden out in the second or third round. So I'm going Joshua Van via KO. I think the defensive wrestling is there. I think the boxing skill is absolutely there, and Durden's hit ability makes him an open target to big shots, and also the effect of body punches could also add in. So I think Joshua Van by KO is what's coming to fruition, guys. It's minus 150. I like the odds. Plus 130 for Durden. So not crazy wide lines. Pretty close odds between these two. Over 1.5 is minus 250. Over 2.5, minus 145. I'll say fight ends inside distance or under 2.5 at plus 112. I think there's a finish here. Man. I think these two are going to bang. I think the way that the stylistic matchup is as well, it's just a fight that exudes violence. And I think that Joshua Van is going to be the more violent guy. And I think he's going to put Cody Durden down and out and get a pretty highlight reel win for himself. And I really think now, 2025, he's got a big shot to really make moves. Now, 23, I hope they don't rush him too much. But when you beat a guy like Cody Durden, it's all big fights after that. So, big opportunity for Van. I think he's going to pass the test. Let's keep running. Next fight on the card, we got Chris Weidman versus Eryk Anders. We got the rebooking. These two were supposed to throw down last month at UFC 309. Eryk Anders ended up pulling out with a medical issue. You can see here, just to confirm that it was him. Yeah, Anders' medical issue. But fight gets rebooked, and now they're doing it at 195. No more middleweight fight. They don't want to make him cut all the way down again. I get it. I'm picking Chris Weidman for a second time. I'm not going to change up the pick. Chris Weidman, he's an exceptional wrestler. Chris Weidman, even at 40, I think is the better wrestler between the two. And Anders doesn't really do anything really good. Anders is an incredible, well-rounded, I don't want to flame him, but I would say he's the king of mediocrity. He does everything okay. He's decent with striking. He's decent with grappling. He's a strong guy. I'll give him credit. He's definitely on the stronger side as far as UFC middleweights go. He's good on the inside, like being in the clinch, ripping some knees to the body, looking to wear on opponents and drag them to the ground. But what are the odds that he's taking down Chris Weidman? I think low. And then if we're in striking, I think it's close. I feel like we're looking at an interesting matchup of guys who, one side of them being Chris Weidman, former world champion and was, once the baddest dude at middleweight, versus Eryk Anders, who is a notable gatekeeper / journeyman who's relatively tough, but he got dropped by Jamie Pickett last time. But to be fair, Jamie Pickett finds a clean punch in your chin. It's all right to go down from it. I just think Chris Weidman can win. He can beat Anders where Anders is at his best, which is the wrestling and the pressure style. And then in the striking, I think it's close. The thing is, Chris Weidman is 40, right? And even though Eryk Anders doesn't seem to have great boxing, and it's not like he's known for a lot of knockouts, he does have a bit of power. He knocked out Kyle Dawkins a few fights ago. And, he could land a big clubbing shot that puts a 40-year-old Weidman away. But I'm still going to pick Chris Weidman because I just think simply it's a weird fight. I think the way that they clash is very interesting. How I see it in my head is it's competitive in the clinch. Weidman a little bit better at wrestling. Maybe backs Anders up. Anders lands some decent punches. Weidman comes back with shots. Maybe some eye pokes from Weidman that are uncalled at this point. I don't know. I think Chris Weidman can get a close one over Eryk Anders, but, not a fight that I'm running out to say, if you're on the betting side, go throw down. No, you wouldn't really feel confident betting either of these guys, especially at even odds here. I kind of just feel like you stay away and chill. Yeah, it's minus 110 down the center on both sides. The argument for the Eryk Anders side would be the youth factor. And, he could be a little quicker than Weidman at this point, but I don't think that Anders is looking very fast in most of his fights. And he's usually just using a pressure-based style to control, aside from, the Dawkins knockout. But Dawkins is not even in the UFC anymore. He loses a brawl with Marc-Andre Barriault. I think Chris Weidman's better than that. And even odds, I think Weidman wins a decision. Let's see what the over is. What is that? Over is minus 250. I'm going to say we go over 2.5. This could be a clumsy and weird fight. Definitely one to sit back and enjoy. And maybe the over 2.5 because historically Anders goes to the distance a lot. Normally, Weidman has a pretty good chin, and I think it could be a close one that goes all three. So give me Chris Weidman. I'm going to say he gets a hard fought decision, 29-28, but definitely too close as far as comfortability to throw cash on. Let's keep running. Next fight. We have Randy Brown versus Bryan Battle. I absolutely love this fight. You should love this fight too. I'm picking Bryan Battle to beat Randy Brown. I think he's going to overwhelm him. Bryan Battle is great at breaking fighters, which is a style that I really like against somebody like Randy Brown, who's good at outpointing fighters, right? And usually has a speed advantage, is going to be able to strike from range, stay away from you. And granted, he knocked out Muslim Salikov in impressive fashion, but he's not knocking out Bryan Battle. Bryan Battle might have some flaws. Bryan Battle at times, his chin comes up a little bit high. Sometimes he's willing to eat too many shots, but then he lands his own and it does more damage. Bryan Battle is a great pressure-based fighter, like I said, who's great at breaking opponents, right? His style is to overwhelm and wear you down. And I think against Randy Brown, that's actually a great style to bring to him because Brown, like I said, slick, quick, moves well, but recent wins against guys like Zaleski, right? Who's OG, older guy towards the end of his run. Same with Salikov and Wellington Turman, who's a can. And then he fought somebody with big upside in Jack Della Maddalena, and he got absolutely destroyed in that fight. I think Bryan Battle is probably going to walk down Randy Brown, touch him with some clean punches, make him uncomfortable. Maybe he drags him to the ground, but it could end up seeing him rocking Brown on the feet. And I think that Bryan Battle is live to win this fight inside distance. I think it's definitely a finish. It's just, what is the finish? KO could definitely happen. We've seen Brown put away in the past, but submission is not crazy. I can see Bryan Battle getting the back of Brown after hurting him, maybe like a club and sub type situation. I'm going to say Bryan Battle to win by finish, but something's telling me submission might be the call to make. He's a minus 230 favorite. I agree with the odds. I think that he's going to be able to bully Brown. Plus 190 for Brown. The guy who beats a Bryan Battle is somebody with big power. Somebody that's going to have the ability to make Bryan Battle shy away from the fight because normally he does not get affected by big shots. Minus 200 for the over, which is interesting. Could see it going over. I see Battle probably overwhelming Brown and winning in round 2 or 3. I'm going to say he does get it done inside of the distance. We're also, from what I know, as far as right now, using the real UFC gloves, not the gloves they tried to bring, the soon-to-be deleted new gloves. And I think that could potentially cause for more violence, and I absolutely love it. Bryan Battle last time beat Kevin Jousset, who was a relatively high-touted striker, and he was able to knock him out. Fight before that, he was bullying Angelusa, AJ Fletcher, but he's gotten better since these fights. He's got knockout ability, he's got grappling skills, and he's got the ability and the skills and the mentality, I think, to break Randy Brown. So give me Bryan Battle to bully Randy Brown and get an impressive finish, and I think the hype continues to grow. Bryan Battle setting himself up for a massive 2025 as well if he wins this fight. Next fight on the card, we have Movsar Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling, all right? I'm not flaming him too hard. Aljo's going to lose, though. Yeah, he's not beating Movsar Evloev. Come on. Aljamain, I'm sorry, bro. It's just the truth is, Aljamain Sterling normally has huge grappling edges against most fighters, but Movsar's a really good wrestler. He's also relatively quick. He's got nice kickboxing. I think that he's cleaner with his striking than Aljo, even though Movsar does disappoint me a bit in the stand-up because of the lacking ability for knockout. He does have a good striking fight IQ, and he does know when to mix in takedown attempts. Now, him taking down and bullying Aljamain Sterling, hard to say, right? Because Aljamain Sterling's an exceptional wrestler, but that doesn't really matter. I delete the grappling from my mind because I am confident Movsar, at worst, is stopping Aljamain's grappling attempts. But now when I match them up striking for striking, Movsar is slicker, and I think that he's got better boxing, and I think he's going to land cleaner shots. He likes to throw up high kicks, which, you know what, that could end up catching Aljamain Sterling. It'd be kind of crazy. If Movsar chinned Aljo, that's going to skyrocket his hype. But I'm just not crazy about calling a knockout for him here because it could be a competitive fight in moments. Aljamain getting touched up a bit, but still bringing pressure. He'll land some strikes. Aljo's pretty explosive and quick. And he's long. I mean, granted, he's at a reach disadvantage here, but at 5'7", both of these guys got long arms. Movsar's got more snap in his shots. And when you do match up the grappling, Aljo's got like funkier jujitsu. Obviously, that's you know, a little bit of a joke towards his nickname, but he does. He's got funkier jujitsu. He's good with the back takes. He's good with the body triangle. He's really long limbed, but he's going to be at a disadvantage in the speed and the strength here. And I think Movsar is going to be touching him up. The thing with Movsar is he literally doesn't finish fights. When's the last time we've seen Movsar get a knockout? He's got 3 knockouts in his career. He has not won by a finish in his entire UFC career. He did beat Rafael Diaz in the 5th round back in 2018. Sergey Morozov, hey, ex-UFC fighter, he ended up subbing him up. But he's not a finisher, man. Damn. It's so crazy. Movsar has not gotten a finish in the UFC. I would love to see him finish out Aljamain Sterling because I do think there are counter shot availabilities from Movsar, which could result in Aljamain Sterling being knocked out. I am just not crazy about like doubling down on the possibility until, he's going to knock out Aljo because he's not knocking anybody out. It hasn't happened yet. I'm going to say that Movsar wins, though. He's going to beat Aljo 30-27. He's going to be a lot faster and a lot cleaner on the feet. And you know what? Don't be surprised if Movsar gets a dominant position in grappling on Aljo. Minus 240 for Movsar with Aljamain Sterling at plus 205. Yes, the Movsar side is definitely the A side. Minus 325 for the over. I think Movsar is a good parlay piece, man. I really don't see him losing to Aljamain Sterling. I think Movsar is kind of on, at the very least, a rematch course with Diego Lopez, who he beat on, the short notice call for Lopez that made Lopez a damn UFC star a year and a half ago. Since then, the Arnold Allen fight was mad close, but still pulled through and won, and Arnold Allen's talented, man. The wins Evloev has are very impressive. Beating Arnold Allen and Diego Lopez, yes, I know the Lopez situation short notice, but regardless, massive wins. The resume of Movsar is deep. Obviously, Aljo has a championship resume, but I'm talking about featherweight. His big win at featherweight is Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar's washed. I'm going with Movsar Evloev, 30-27. Next fight. We got Vicente Luque versus Themba Gorimbo. I think Vicente Luque is going to chin him. I'm joking. I'm sorry, yo. I can't pick Vicente Luque. It's just not possible for me. And I think that it's because he's just washed. Oh, but he's a little bit younger than Themba Gorimbo. Yeah, but does Themba Gorimbo have fucking wars on wars in his UFC career? No. Vicente Luque has been in the UFC forever. Look at his UFC record, bro. 15-6. Exceptional record, but 1-3 over his last 4. And his prime was like late 2020 to 2021. This was the prime. Even the Wonderboy lost. This was the prime right here. This was the prime. The Jeff Neal fight did a lot of damage to him. Then he beat RDA, and then Buckley destroyed him. And he looked bad against Buckley. The Mike Perry brawl, you think that doesn't take things out of a fighter? That shit was what? 5 years ago he brawled with Mike Perry and took a ton of damage? Themba Gorimbo has not taken that type of damage. Vicente Luque has legitimately had a bleed in his brain. And I cannot pick someone that has had serious issues like that, because I do think it could destroy the chin and even just the mental state, right? Imagine you're in the damn cage and you're thinking to yourself after you get cracked hard, fuck, my brain bled before. Is it bleeding again? Fuck, I don't feel too good right now. The mentality is not there to be elite. Themba Gorimbo, right now, I mean, he's The Rock's favorite fighter, so he's just trying to strive towards the top. He believes he's got something special. I mean, he's training at Extreme Couture now, and I think it's paying off. Vicente Luque, chinny at this point. Vicente Luque is too much of a massive worry. Dealing with a guy who's better on the ground than him and a lot stronger is a factor. Bigger than him, more powerful at this point. Yes, Vicente Luque in his prime, I think, could do well with Gorimbo, but he's so far from it. His timing is off. He's thrown a lot of kicks, but he's definitely lost his timing with his boxing. His boxing looks worse than ever. Gorimbo's got some heavy hands. Even though he's not a big knockout puncher, he does got knockouts. He touched up Price with some decent shots, and I think Price has a better chin at this point than Vicente Luque does. I'm going to say Gorimbo's live to finish him. I think Gorimbo could finally get the highlight reel win that the UFC is trying to set up for him. They gave him Price last time. Now he gets Luque here. He's replacing Nick Diaz. Hopefully Nick's okay. Nick Diaz has lost his damn mind. I'm going to say that Themba Gorimbo can finish Vicente Luque. But don't be surprised when he 30-27s him and he wins a typical Themba Gorimbo embrace the grind type of fight. Minus 150 for Gorimbo with Luque at plus 130. I think these odds should be 3-1. I think Luque is completely washed, guys. I do. Over 2.5, minus 210. I'm going to say Themba Gorimbo. Too big and too strong. He'll find some weird punches on Luque's face. That's the thing about Themba Gorimbo. If you haven't seen a Themba Gorimbo fight, and maybe this is the first time you'll be watching him, he's got awkwardly good striking. Like, he throws like weird, clunky punches, even a little herky-jerky, but they land, and they hit pretty hard. I feel like on the ground, big wrestling edge. Yes, maybe prime Luque is better at jiu-jitsu, but it's not prime Luque. Luque is going to need a Hail Mary. He's going to need a crazy comeback. Like, if Luque can somehow win this fight, I will be extremely impressed at his ability to turn his career around, because he literally seems to be going this way, whereas Gorimbo's going that way. And I have to favor a guy who's hungry to become a top 10 fighter versus Luque, who knows the motivation at this point. He's not getting a title fight. He's far from the title picture. He's had health issues. I'm not saying he's just cashing a check, but against Buckley, it looked like that because he was just getting pounded on the ground. He just turtled up and it was over. So give me Themba Gorimbo to pull through. Next fight on the card, we have Anthony Lionheart Smith versus Dominick Reyes to close out the prelims. Woo! I actually really like this weird fight. I'm going to go with Dominick Reyes to beat Anthony Smith because he still seems to have some speed left, right? Anthony Smith is looking so slow as of late. Like, you compare Anthony Smith several years ago beating Volkan Oezdemir or Gustafsson to him today, it's like not the same movement. He's slowed down substantially. Physically, he looks worse than ever. He's 2 years older than, I guess, a year and a half older than Dominick Reyes, but it's not so much about the age, right? The number, it's what we see. And Anthony Smith just seems to be at the point of being washed. I know he beat Vitor Petrino. I get it. But let me say something about that Vitor Petrino fight. Petrino fought like an idiot and put his neck into the guillotine for Anthony Smith. If he would have just chose to strike with Anthony Smith, he probably would have dusted him. But instead, because he's a dumb up-and-comer, right? Low fight IQ. He's a young guy. I'm not trying to shaft him. I like Petrino. He gets subbed. Anthony Smith wins that fight. It builds a little hype back. And then Roman Dolidze 30-27s him. Dolidze touches him up a bit on the feet, makes him uncomfortable, chops at his legs, takes him down, beats him up. Dominant win. Fight before that, Khalil knocks him out. Fight before that, the split decision over Ryan Spann is still impressive. But he got rock bad in that fight, and I don't want to say he got gifted a decision, but it could have went against him. And then Johnny Walker destroyed him, and he's like, oh, stop hurting my family. I'm like, whoa, that was strange. Strange flashback for him in that fight to the home intruder. Listen, Dominick Reyes is a southpaw with nasty hand speed. I think he still has clean KO power and precision. His confidence has got to be up. The win against Jacoby, 1,000% is a confidence-building win. I mean, when you lose 4 fights in a row, it fucks with your head bad, especially when you lose this bad against Ryan Spann. But then you come back and you get a nice knockout of Jacoby, who's a former Glory kickboxer, and you chin him pretty easily, and you don't really take any damage, and you eat a straight shot pretty well. I think that gives Reyes confidence that he's still got some fight left in him. And yeah, he's lost really bad, but John Jones is a fucking GOAT, is the GOAT, okay? Jan Blachowicz is a former champ, Yuri Prochazka, former champ, and then yes, Ryan Spann hit him with the perfect knockout power jab, which was just on the damn button and flattened him. I think he's better than that. Anthony Smith doesn't have the big power. Say what you want. Oh, but Anthony Smith beat Ryan Spann twice. Throw the MMA math away. Okay? Dominick Reyes, in a lot of people's minds, maybe even including my own at the time at the least, like he beat John Jones here. It looked like it, but then he loses these fights. So Dominick Reyes still, if he has a little fight left in him, can mix it up with somebody like Anthony Smith and I think dominate. I think he could knock Anthony Smith out. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he has the hand speed and power to KO him. Smith was KO'd against Roundtree, who I'm 99% sure is also a southpaw. He is. I think Dom Reyes could end up chinning Smith, but you know, both guys seemingly far past their best days, which is why it makes it a compelling fight, right? Because both seem to be, 5 years removed from their damn primes. I think Dominick Reyes has more upside. I think he's got cleaner punching, faster hands. He's not going to get taken down by Smith. So in a striking fight, Smith's going to hit him and knock him out. Unless Reyes' chin is 1,000% gone, which it could be. Maybe Reyes' chin is nothing now. And he gets dusted in one shot by Anthony Smith, who was the last time he dusted somebody with a punch? I can't even think of it. When's the last time Anthony Smith dusted somebody with a punch? I mean, he did some damage to Crew. He didn't really dust him, though. Did he touch Span in this fight? Bro, last KO win was against Shogun back in 2018 for him. Holy hell. Like he landed some shots on Volkov and Gracie. Like there's been moments in Gustafsson. Like there's been moments, to be fair. But I'm just saying, man, I think that Dominick Reyes' hand speed's a big factor. He's got enough power to deal with Smith. Dominick Reyes wins this fight. Minus 330 for Dom Reyes. Anthony Smith plus 270 as the underdog. Looking towards the side of an over 1.5 is minus 155. Okay. Live to go over 1.5, but worrisome because I can see Reyes catching him. The odds being 3-1 is crazy, though. Damn, they're wide. Minus 330. I didn't think I'd ever see Reyes at a minus 300 tag, especially after those losses, man. But hey, the fight game continues to surprise us. I think Reyes should win, but just, be a little cautious simply for the fact that his chin might not be there, man. And even though Smith ain't knocked people out since 2018, okay? He could catch him with something, but I doubt it. Nah, we're going Dom Reyes by a knockout, and I'm feeling kind of confident now as I'm talking about it. He's going to have a big speed edge. Smith don't seem to have it anymore. I think Reyes still has some delusional desire to be the best because of the Jones fight. It's just left a bad taste in his mouth. He's trying to make a run. And beating Anthony Smith, good way to start it. Next fight, it brings us to our main card opener. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We got Nate Landwehr versus Doo Ho Choi. I'm going with Nate Landwehr over Doo Ho Choi. I think he can beat him. I know Doo Ho Choi is riding some hype right now because last time he put out Bill Algeo, but he was getting touched by Bill Algeo. He was getting taken down. He was made uncomfortable by Bill Algeo. Doo Ho Choi is a very notable fighter who's been in wars. He has a Hall of Fame war with Cub Swanson, but he's always on the losing side of these wars. It's not like he's beaten anybody that good. Best win for him, I mean, what? Oh, shit, he beat Bill Algeo? Drawed with Kyle Nelson, but he should have won that fight. The point deduction of the headbutt screwed him in that fight. I guess he screwed himself, but you get what I'm saying. And then, knockout loss to Jourdain, knockout loss to Stevens, loss in a war with Cub Swanson 7, almost 8 years ago. You got to go with Nate Landwehr, who's been fighting all the time, taking big shots and coming back with big shots, eating big punches and recovering. Nate Landwehr has an insane ability to recover, and he thrives in brawls. And yes, Doo Ho Choi loves a good brawl. I do think he's going to have a hard time dealing with Nate the Train because Nate the Train just simply doesn't break. Nate the Train doesn't break. You're going to hit him with everything. He's going to keep swinging back. And I think he could find Doo Ho Choi's chin and hurt him. Even though I think Choi's a little quicker, maybe even a little more powerful, Nate the Train's got more dog in him than Doo Ho Choi. And when this fight gets nasty, Nate the Train is 1,000% still going to be there swinging as hard as he can. Whereas I don't know. If Doo Ho Choi gets hit with a massive shot, I could see him turtling up and getting finished off. I could see him getting on his back and getting beaten up a little bit. I know Choi's got a bit of pop, but something tells me Nate the Train in the UFC ain't going anywhere, okay? He needs this win. He's coming off the finish at Jamal Emmers where he was rock bad early. He could get rock bad early in this fight too, but then he could come back from it and Choi could end up blowing his wad looking for the KO. Dan Ige beats him on a decision. He was more calculated with Ige. Austin Lingo finished. The Onama fight where he was rocked multiple times, but he could have finished Onama to be fair. Ludovic Klein finished. Let me tell you something about Nate Landwehr. When he gets hit, it seems to turn the beast on even more. He's better after he gets touched with something big. So if Choi rocks Nate Landwehr, he could make the mistake of going after it and trying to find the kill. And Nate Landwehr, as of late, has been hard to put away. And then if you get a more calculated Nate Landwehr, I think he's in a competitive striking fight with Doo Ho Choi. And also, it's very competitive if they tie up. I could see Landwehr having success landing takedowns. Bill Algeo still had moments of success in that fight. That's what I'm really alluding to. It's not like Choi just dog-walked him. And I picked Choi heading into that fight. I thought Doo Ho Choi was going to have a good comeback. But then you throw him Nate Landwehr. And I wanted to come out and pick Doo Ho Choi, but I'm looking at Choi's last fight and he's getting hit a lot. And then I'm thinking Nate Landwehr can crack. Nate Landwehr can come back from big shots. The punch that Choi put Bill Algeo away with is not a punch that puts Nate Landwehr away. You hear what I'm saying? You get where I'm coming from. Nate Landwehr's not going to turtle up because you hit him in the eye with a big shot. Nate Landwehr's going to keep coming forward. And I think that could mess with Doo Ho Choi's head. And I think that could eventually break Choi and put him away. So I'm going to say Nate Landwehr can win this fight. The more active guy, look at that. 3 years ago, 5 fights ago, 5 fights ago, almost 8 years ago. It's kind of crazy to see Doo Ho Choi had that long military layoff. And then a year and 9 months, then he comes back 4 months ago. And he looked good against Aljo. I'm not trying to take anything away. I picked him in that fight. I like Doo Ho Choi. But Nate Landwehr is so gritty and proven in these dog fights. And even though Choi's been a part of some awesome fights, I just think that it could go against him here. I think Nate Landwehr is tougher than him. That's the truth of it all, is Nate Landwehr is tougher. And in a brawl, I see Nate Landwehr pulling through. And Choi's style is to brawl. He was also pulling a lot of gillies last fight against Bill Algeo. That could put Nate Landwehr on top. And Landwehr can end up doing some work from top position if he desires. But he might just let him up and want to, sit in there and bang on the feet, which is a possibility and not necessarily a bad thing. It'll be entertaining. Nate Landwehr's the favorite, minus 135. Interesting odds. He opened as a minus 155. Choi plus 115. I'm going with Nate Landwehr. I'm going with activity. I'm going with toughness. And I'm going with Nate the Train in the UFC. Minus 170 for Nate the Train. I think he's pulling through in a good back and forth fight. He can box well on the inside with Choi. And I think if they're slugging shots in close, Choi's the first guy to fall. And maybe, actually, take it back. It might not be the first guy to fall, but he'll be the last guy to fall. And that's why I'm saying Nate Landwehr is going to win the fight. Because if you put him down, he's proven to get back up. Whereas if Choi gets hit hard, I'm sure he's going to try to come back. But I could see him getting put away. Whereas I see Nate the Train dealing with bombs and coming back. So Nate the Train for the W. I think that he's going to win against Doo Ho Choi in an absolute classic. Great way to start this main card. The UFC is putting it on, the first fight on the main card, because I really think if there's a guaranteed banger on any card, it's this fight right here. Next fight, weird one. Bryce Mitchell versus Kron Gracie. I had to take a double take. What? That's weird. It's a weird fight to put on the main card because Kron Gracie, he's not fought in a while. When's the last? A year and a half ago? A year and a half ago, he lost every round to Charles Jourdain. Cub Swanson beat him 5 years ago now. My God, that's a long time ago. Bryce Mitchell been out for 11 months. Josh Emmett violently chinned him. But it's just interesting that Kron Gracie is getting somebody in the top 15 after losing to Jourdain, who never reached the top 15 in the UFC featherweight division. I get it, though. It's a Gracie. And it's a matchup that kind of makes sense, I guess. Bryce Mitchell's a good grappler. He's known for solid jiu-jitsu skills in these, UFC fights. He's normally the guy with better grappling than his opponent, a lot of the time, I would say. But in this fight here, he's dealing with an exceptional true jiu-jitsu player. So it's going to be interesting if they hit the ground. I do think Bryce Mitchell could do some work from top position, from full guard, not get submitted, and garner up some control time, rip a bit of ground and pound, and beat Gracie where he's his most comfortable. Because Gracie showed us last fight, he's willing to pull guard, which I don't necessarily like. And I'm going to also say this, and this is a little bit of diss at Gracie, and I'll just tell it straight. He chose to kind of de-evolve his game. He took 4 years off from fighting, or 3.5, whatever. He lost to Cub Swanson and looked okay in striking exchanges. He comes back against Charles Jourdain. It looks like he didn't do any striking. I'm not expecting a better version of Kron Gracie at 36 against Bryce Mitchell than what he looked like 5 years ago against Cub Swanson. I think he was better then. I mean, he made his UFC debut submitting Bruce Leroy, which is super impressive. And it seemed like he actually had legit top 15 potential if he would have just stuck with the plan. But I don't know, confidence issues maybe strayed him away from fighting. Obviously, we've seen, if you heard, he's complained about the rule set. He does not like 5-minute rounds. He wants unlimited rounds. This is not 1993, Kron. And I understand that's where your family had the most success, was in the old days. But this is a modern MMA. Okay? This is a modern sport. And either adapt for the rule set or just listen, go do King of the Streets, bro. Maybe they'll pay you something to go fucking tit for tat with some of those savage brawlers. I think Bryce Mitchell is probably going to win a unanimous decision. He can outstrike Kron Gracie. That's another thing. Bryce Mitchell's striking is not bad. He's developed decent kickboxing skills. He's all right on the feet. He's strong on the ground, strong enough to negate Gracie's attempts for submissions. And I think Bryce Mitchell's en route to a 30-27. Oh my gosh, another huge favorite. Minus 700 for Bryce Mitchell with Kron Gracie at plus 500. We got wide odds galore over here. Minus 255 for the over. Yeah, it's probably going over 2.5. I think Bryce Mitchell's winning this thing. I see him outstriking Kron Gracie. He'll probably end up in top position at some point. He'll be able to stifle Gracie's submissions. I almost called him Kron Gracie. Kron Gracie. Bro, it's been so long since the Gracie's been having success at a high level. I'm botching the name. Kron Gracie. Respect to the Gracie family. But Kron Gracie's not beating Bryce Mitchell. Not in 2024. Let's keep running. Next fight on the card, we have our featured fight. We got heavyweight rematch, Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov. Compelling rematch, and I'm picking Ciryl Gane again. I'm sorry, okay? I know you guys love Volkov. I love Volkov too. I picked Volkov against Sergey Pavlovich, but a big reason I picked him against Sergey Pavlovich was a mobility advantage. Better footwork, better striking from range, and quicker. What do I know he doesn't have here? Better mobility than Ciryl Gane. He's at a speed disadvantage. He's at a movement disadvantage. He's actually at a 1-inch reach disadvantage, and Gane has a nice jab and good front kicks up the center. So Volkov to win this fight, make it a bit of a brawl, box on the inside, and catch Gane with a big shot. It's just hard to say Ciryl Gane's going to get dropped by Volkov. Volkov's great at outstriking people, and sure, he's got some power. He knocked out Jairzinho Rozenstruik, knocked out Alexander Fatboy Romanov. But you know what I'm saying here is he's more of a volume puncher, or a volume striker, I should say. And Ciryl Gane's a great volume striker too. And when we're in a tit-for-tat kickboxing match, I got to favor the speed of Ciryl Gane. I got to favor the front kicks and the jab up the center, the southpaw stance and the stance switches. The movement of Ciryl Gane's a factor. They're also fighting in the big cage, which is interesting because their first fight was in the small cage. And listen, Ciryl Gane won like 5 rounds to zip in that fight, but it's not like Volkov didn't have a couple moments. He was a little gun shy in that fight. I think Volkov's gotten better since then. Can we say the same about Ciryl Gane? I think we can. Ciryl Gane gets a really bad rep because of the Jon Jones loss. He got submitted so easily. But he had a glaring weakness in his game that Jon Jones has perfectly exploited. Obviously, a lot of conspiracies amongst the casual fan base that Jon Jones and Ciryl Gane was a fixed fight. I don't think so. I think that Gane just fumbled the bag against an elite grappler. An elite fighter, the GOAT, Jon Jones. It's fine. Ciryl Gane's still pretty good. I mean, he was making Francis Ngannou wrestle him. That's how good his striking is. Ciryl Gane is an exceptional kickboxer. And yes, Volkov is a really good striker, and he's a high-tier kickboxer too. But with a speed disadvantage here, with Ciryl Gane already having his number once, and now we're in a 3-round fight, I think maybe Gane could even look better. The strength of Gane should be a factor. I don't think Volkov's taking him down and submitting him. I know that, Volkov has underrated jiu-jitsu, but I just don't see it being a massive asset in this fight against Ciryl Gane because he doesn't really have the wrestling to get it there. Volkov might look to wrestle, but I think realistically, if Volkov can get in close range and box with Gane a bit, but even then, I think that Gane's going to be able to counter shot him with the speed advantage. As good as Volkov is, and as much as I love Volkov, this 4-fight win streak has been awesome for him. And he's a better fighter than he was when they fought before, like 7 fights ago for Volkov. Ciryl Gane is still an exceptional talent. He's still extremely quick, and he's still one of the best heavyweights on the planet. Don't write him off because of a loss to Jon Jones on the ground. Ciryl Gane should win. Probably 30-27. Probably a rinse and repeat of last time. Just to be honest, minus 340 for Ciryl Gane. He's a massive favorite once again. Yeah, he deserves to be a big favorite, though. He already beat him once. Minus 250 for the over 2.5 with heavyweights that are good point fighters. As much as normally you'd favor heavyweight fights ending earlier. Nah, I think this fight's probably going over. Ciryl Gane's still got good KO ability. He beat Spivak by KO a bit over a year ago, knocked out Tuivasa, and then knocked out Derek Lewis there. Good finisher, good volume striker. I mean, lost to Francis and lost to Jon Jones. Very forgivable losses. For Volkov, I mean, forgivable losses too. He lost to Tom Aspinall. That's really not a bad loss, right? 5 fights ago, Aspinall submits him in the first round. Aspinall's a lead on the ground. But I do think it shows that, Volkov is not going to turn into this exceptional wrestler here. His bread and butter is striking. And in a lot of these fights, he has had significant advantages in striking from distance. And I would argue he was quicker than all of these guys that he fought, right? Here, I can't say the same thing. I'll guarantee you Ciryl Gane's faster. And Ciryl Gane is a big, strong heavyweight with good movement and speed. And I think that his versatile striking attack will be too much for Volkov. And I think he outpoints him for a second time. And I think Ciryl Gane takes 2 over Alexander Volkov and puts himself in a spot to fight for the belt again. If John Jones decides to retire, Ciryl Gane versus Tom Aspinall for the vacant title or whatever. If they promote Aspinall, who knows exactly what they're going to do. But either way, I think that Ciryl Gane is in the mix, and I think beating a Volkov is a very high likely outcome. So I'm going to say Ciryl Gane with a unanimous decision beats Drago Volkov for a second time. It would be an absolute monkey wrench in the damn division if Volkov somehow turned up and knocked out Gane. That'd be insane. I just don't think it's likely. I think Gane beats him twice. So Ciryl Gane for the unanimous decision. Let's keep running up. Next fight on the card, we got Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Machado Garry. I'm picking Shavkat Rakhmonov to beat Ian Garry. Now, Ian Garry is a really good striker, and I'm taking nothing away. He's got great leg kicks. He's got amazing movement. He's got very quick hands, and he's precise, too. His ground skills are good offensively. We've seen them, like he used them against Michael Venom Page a bit, but I don't know how the defensive wrestling abilities are going to look, especially matched up against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat is the essence of a pressure-based fighter. He's got knockout power in his hands. He's also got a strong chin, and he does not quit on this forward pressure takedown style that he likes to bring. He might fail takedowns early, and Garry may win some of the exchanges. But the thing is, I don't think Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to lose any confidence. He's going to keep the same game plan going. And we have 5 rounds to work, not 3. If it's a 3-round fight, maybe Garry can strike from distance, move constantly, stay away from Shavkat, and pull off a competitive decision. But in a 5-round fight, that's a lot of time. And I think Shavkat will find his way inside on Ian Garry. I think Shavkat will land some big punches in close range, but I do think he will drag Ian Garry to the ground, and he'll drag him into the deep waters and drown him. I think Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to win this fight with grappling. And I think Shavkat Rakhmonov is probably going to win this fight by submission. I'm going to say that he submits Ian Garry. I'm going with that pick. I think he pulls through by submission. Shavkat, his boxing isn't bad, but his striking from distance, he's going to be at a slight disadvantage with Garry. But the thing is, his style is to close that gap. So I see exceptional patient pressure for him being a skill set that like supersedes Ian Garry's distance striking. And Garry moves a lot, but is he going to be able to be the matador for 5 rounds with Shavkat and pick him apart? Add on top of things that though Ian Garry is a good striker, I don't think he has heavy hands. I don't at all, actually. He doesn't have heavy hands. Ian Garry is not really a big puncher. Ian Garry is a good volume puncher, and he's a nasty leg kicker. If he chops at the legs all night as Shavkat, but even shooting at the legs, I can see him getting clobbered by a big shot. What's interesting is these two have sparred each other at Kill Cliff FC, which that may be something that has given Ian Garry confidence to take this fight on short notice. But listen, sparring is not the fight. And I will assume that Shavkat Rakhmonov has a clear-cut grappling advantage over Ian Garry, and he will submit him. So I'm going Shavkat by submission. I'm kind of thinking it's live around the 3rd round, to be honest with you. Rakhmonov is minus 360. He's a massive favorite. Garry plus 295. Odds are a little wide, but I'll agree with it for the outcome. Under 3.5 is plus 100. I'm saying we're going under 3.5. I'm saying this fight ends in 3 rounds, and I think it's Shavkat by submission. He's coming off the sub of Wonderboy, beat Jeff Neal by sub before that, subbed up Magny, beat Carlson Harris by KO, subbed up Michael Prazeres. I mean, the dude's known for finishes. Shavkat's that guy. On the opposite side, we got Ian Garry. He gets a close one with Michael Venom Page where he had to use grappling because he was getting in trouble on the feet. Jeff Neal had him running away, and he wins a split decision. Beat up Neil Magny, knocked out D-Rod, knocked out Kenan Song. All fair wins, but they're not Shavkat Rakhmonov's. Shavkat's going to be too much for him, guys. And also, Shavkat's got a 3-inch reach advantage, which I think is going to be an interesting factor in this fight as they start to strike. Because I'm curious how Shavkat's boxing looks. I think he could land some big punches on Ian Garry, too. Garry's kicks are quick, though, and his footwork is nice. And I see him trying to stay away from Shavkat, but eventually he's going to get dragged to the floor, and I think he's going to get subbed up. Shavkat Rakhmonov to submit Ian Garry and earn his spot as the #1 contender. I mean, he's already considered the #1 contender, but, you know, his win over Wonderboy doesn't have the same magic that it did, you know, as soon as it happened, which was what, 11 months ago, like a year ago? Because Buckley then chinned Wonderboy pretty bad. I think now Shavkat beating Garry, he like super asserts himself as the top contender and the face of the new generation to then fight against Bilal. So very exciting 2025. And I think a Shavkat Rakhmonov Belal fight is what's going to end up happening next, because I think Shavkat's taking Ian Garry out by submission here. Let's keep running. Our main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe it up. We got Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Asakura. I'm going with Kai Asakura to upset Alexandre Pantoja. I am going to go for a guy making his UFC debut to win the title. The reason that I like him here is his stand-up game is incredibly elusive and slick, but on top of that, notable takedown defense. If you look at the last fight for Asakura, he took on an exceptional wrestler. He took on Juan Archuleta, who is the former Bellator bantamweight champ and the only man to beat Patchy Mix, who right now is running the show in Bellator, or whatever's left of it. But I understand. Bellator is not the UFC, but that is up in weight at 135, and Archuleta comes in at 140 for the fight, where we got 133 for Asakura. He's a damn flyweight beating bantamweights who miss weight by 5 pounds. Kai Asakura is going to be a little bigger than Alexandre Pantoja, which is a positive factor. He has nasty knockout power in his hands, but also has nasty knees up the center as well. Big body knee is what I actually got him to win against Juan Archuleta. Archuleta's boxing as he throws straight is more of an offensive weapon than the overhand shots that Pantoja throws, specifically in this matchup with Asakura. Yes, Pantoja has very strong jiu-jitsu skills and strong grappling abilities. I don't think there's a huge possibility of him bodying Kai Asakura in the wrestling, because Asakura has good scramble ability. Asakura has good takedown defense. He's got nice hips. He does make you pay with big shots on the return fire. And I think that this fight is by design. I think the plan for the UFC is trying to emerge 2025 in that Japanese market. And Kai Asakura, to bring them a massive maybe fight night or pay-per-view in 2025, seems like that's kind of the plan. I think that's what's going on behind the scenes. Not saying it's a fixed fight. I'm saying the matchup favors Asakura. As good as Pantoja is, I've always felt as though he's a flawed champion. Close fight with Steve Erceg. Pantoja-Erceg was really competitive. Erceg fumbled the bag with bad fight IQ, but he had successful moments in the fight against Alexandre Pantoja, and he's not to the level of Kai Asakura. He's not beating Juan Archuleta. Beats Brandon Royval, fair fight, competitive fight, clean win for Pantoja. And listen, beating Brandon Royval is impressive for Pantoja. Fight with Moreno was a 50-50. He's beaten Moreno for, 3 times out of 3? If you include the Ultimate Fighter one. That last one kind of could have went either way, to be fair. It was super competitive. Pantoja has an unlimited gas tank, it seems, which is very interesting. He's got good looping punches. It's not a style that looks clean, but it's super effective. He knows how to embrace the grind and start grappling. He's got great takedown ability. He works well from top position, good control from top position, very physically strong, good back takes, good submission threats. And listen, his hooks are nice. His overhand hooks are nice. But I feel like the way he dips his head could open up a big knee for Asakura up the center to the face. And I think Asakura will also be working knees to the body, explosive punches to the head. I think he's got slick stand-up. I think he's a powerful guy. And I think he's a special talent. And it's crazy that I'm picking a guy making his UFC debut. But a win over Juan Archuleta, I'm holding as like a pretty high regard W, because back when I was the Bellator Mac running the show, covering Bellator for a long time, when Bellator was actually good, Archuleta was that guy. And Asakura knocked him out with a huge body knee, up in weight, and he missed weight by 5 pounds. I carry a lot of value in a win like that for Asakura here, taking a big opportunity in a UFC debut against Pantoja, but against a smaller guy, against somebody that I think he's going to be able to shuck off with takedown attempts. I think Asakura is really talented, and I think that he's going to shine and thrive here. Though he hasn't fought in the UFC yet, he's been fighting in a good level. Like, Ryzen is legit for the lighter weight classes, and I think Kai Asakura is going to beat Alexandre Pantoja. How does he win it? I'm kind of seeing a chance for a big knee, up the center, big knee to the body. Could end up being 5 hard rounds where Asakura is tested to the absolute maximum, but he's got that speed edge, can outstrike Pantoja, but I could see him putting him down. I could see Asakura getting a counter shot KO of Pantoja as Pantoja enters the pocket a little wildly, looping for like an overhand shot. Maybe he catches him with something there, because Asakura's got really nice counters. And I'm going to say that he beats Alexandre Pantoja, which is kind of crazy to me. Thinking about it now, I see it happening, though. I'm excited to see these two face off. 3-inch height advantage for Asakura is a factor. Taller and longer guy, younger guy. And I think somebody to keep an eye on here and build the Japanese market again for the UFC. I'm going to say Kai Asakura becomes the flyweight champion, beating Alexandre Pantoja, and I think he makes the flyweight division great again. Because if he wins, there's better fights too. Brandon Royval Asakura fight is sick. Moreno Asakura fight, sick. Eventually a Tatsuro Taira Asakura fight is crazy. Battle of Japan. So for the UFC, I think they're also hoping that Asakura wins, to be fair. And I think he is going to pull through against Pantoja. And with the real gloves, the OG gloves, not these fake new gloves, I think Asakura can land some big punches that do damage. So give me Kai Asakura to upset Alexandre Pantoja. It's plus 230 for Kai Asakura. Pantoja minus 270. I'm going with the big dog here in the main event. Over 2.5 is minus 140. Interesting to see the odds this wide. I think Asakura deserves a little more respect on the lines. Even though he hasn't fought in the UFC, he's fought at a good level. I think this fight ends inside of the distance, which is predicted at minus 200. And you have to favor the finishing side of Kai Asakura to pull off an upset knockout. And that is what I'm going to predict. I'm saying Kai Asakura becomes the new UFC flyweight champ. And I think the division is going to be bigger than it's ever been with him as the face of it. And I absolutely cannot wait for Saturday. This is the final pay-per-view of 2024. And I think it's ending with an absolute bang. I hope you guys enjoyed the full card predictions. There they are. I'm happy to have the UFC back. Was sad to have an off week, but listen, back to the normal content flow. I hope you guys enjoyed the full card breakdown. Let me know what you thought of the picks in the comments down below. If you got nothing to say, just drop a W in the comments to boost the algorithm for your boy. Definitely. I need everybody's main event prediction. If you're watching this, give me your main event pick. I want to hear from the people. Thank you guys for tuning in. Smash the likes on your way out. And if you're new, subscribe. Glad to have the usual UFC schedule back. Got a couple of cards left this year, which I'm very, very, very much excited for. So see you for the Fight Companion. See you every day with the live streams, the news reactions, and more, because I'm doing a ton of content at this point. So if you haven't checked out some of the news videos, keep your eyes on the channel for them, because I'm dropping those as well. Much love, my people. I'll see you all on the next one. W's in the comments if you got nothing to say. Peace out.